No Zach and no Janet, just me. Man, she's so fast. She's the fastest peer alive. You're the fastest peer alive.
Yep.
Yeah, and I dig the leggings. I really
Oh,
dig.
good. They're
Yeah.
from Uniqlo, which is like I think it's probably fast fashion, but it's Japanese. So then you tell yourself it's fine. But and they don't make like the bright colors anymore. They just do like they're like thermal, which I mean they're so worn down at this point. They're certainly not thermal, but because I recognize it is the summer. But that's why I thought I had a fever. I was like, why am I so cold? I'm so cold. What's the number of this episode? Season what?
17
Episode what?
season 17 episode
Episode
7.
Okay,
Hey
season
guys, everybody's
17,
popped back
episode
in.
7.
Donna popped over in record time. Yeah, I bought and Bella was so mad at me. I bought myself some Lululemon pants.
Oh, and she's mad because she doesn't want her dad to be wearing Lululemon.
Because I give
Or
her
she
shit
likes
all
them.
the time. Actually, she did great she worked her ass off all summer and actually like saved money. Like last year was the first
Nice.
year she was like working full time.
Yeah.
And it was like twice a day shit was getting dropped off from Shein, from
Yeah.
Lululemon, from
They
wherever.
make it so easy.
Yeah, just all day. She like spent all of her money all summer.
Yeah.
This summer she saved a little bit, but I was always giving her shit about constantly ordering Lululemon because it's so expensive.
Uh-huh.
And Becky came home, was I don't know, 2 weeks ago when they got delivered and saw a Lululemon package, and she brought it in. She's like, oh, she didn't send it to her part. This is to you. What is this? I'm like, oh yeah, those are just the pants that I ordered. And she's like, immediately sends the picture to Bella, and Bella's like, he's fake.
Yeah.
What
You did it
happened
to yourself,
was
Bobby.
what happened was is I ungrew a lot of my clothes. So I'd like, and I was like, man, I didn't like Becky and I went to the Levi's outlet store because I don't know like
Ungrew.
what.
I've never heard that before, but of course that's
Yeah.
like what we
Oh,
say.
here's Simone. Here she is. After taking 300 days of Child Memory
Oh.
Lane, why am I
Oh,
the only
no.
one who gets lost on Patreon? Simone, we talked about you the entire hour over on Patreon. What happened? Never mind. Tell me later. But yeah, so like I finally like cleaned out my closet because I was like hesitant to do it because I'm just like, oh, man, as soon as I do this, I'm gonna gain weight back and then I'm gonna need all those clothes. I didn't throw them away. I
Yeah,
kept the
I hear
stuff I
that.
liked and I put them in a tote and kept them. But I got tired of every time I'd go to get dressed, like trying to pick through what actually fit me. I needed jeans, didn't have any jeans that fit. So, and I don't know, like, what is a grown, it's been so long since I bought jeans. I don't know what a grown man wears. So I went with the Levi's, went to the Levi's outlet.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Got a few pairs of the 501s. They're bringing them back.
Yeah, I feel like they're there.
This is what I learned about the 501s.
Uh-oh.
You as I'm doing right now, I wait until the last minute when I got to go to the bathroom, and you have to got to build in time for the 501s on account of the button fly.
Oh, the button fly jeans.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I was at that comedy show Saturday. And it was like there was like a line. I'm like, oh, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting. I was like, okay, I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick. I ran. I was like, oh, barely made it. And I was like, oh no, no.
Yeah, that's tough. Ooh.
Undoing all the buttons. But yeah, so I needed some dress pants to wear to work because we're only supposed to wear jeans on Friday. I wear jeans whenever I want to.
Oh, your Lululemon's going to be your dress pants?
So I didn't buy leggings, Janet.
I didn't say leggings. I just said, are your Lululemon pants going to be your fancy pants?
So hang on. I gotta put this. I forgot to send Erica the pregame. And before I forget, pregame. What's it? Bob's a Boilermaker. What else we got?
Well, there was all the stuff at the beginning where it was like everything had a sequel and none of it was good.
Yeah. Oh, there was the Harry the
Bob's crop top. Bob gets a crop top.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say what it is. I'll let you all be surprised tomorrow.
Yeah.
And what I think the last one will be fancy
I'm
pants.
concerned that you wrote Bob's Hairy Beaver. I'm pretty concerned.
I wasn't gonna say it.
I'm pretty concerned.
Fancy pants
Yeah, all
and
right.
more. No Zach this week. Anyway, yeah. So I just like Googled. I'm like, what are nice like dress pants? Because I found like I need to get like an athletic cut because my waist has gotten smaller, but I have really big leg. I do a lot of leg work,
Yeah.
so I would like put on like some of the dress pants I had, and it'd be like they're like skin tight on my thighs and then loose on my waist. So I'd put in like comfortable athletic cut dress pants.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how like Google will bring up like across the top all like the shopping
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
ones. And I'm scrolling through and they're freaking expensive. They're all like, well, these are the best. These are $135. These are
Sure.
$150. These are da da da. And then there was Lululemon men's athletic cut dress pants on sale for $66. And so
Mm-hmm.
I went and checked them out. They had my size. It was
Mm-hmm.
only like all of them were like $150 or $130, except for this one like style they had was like on clearance for whatever, like
Yeah.
50% off. And yeah, I had a real hard time. Like I was like, oh, they're gonna give me shit. 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 But I finally pulled the trigger, and I tell you
Yeah.
what,
You love them?
pretty comfortable dress pants.
Yeah, I bet they
Got,
are.
got myself a gray pair and a khaki pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, listen, especially if they're on clearance, if you find the thing that you like, I'm a big advocate of just get a couple colors. You're gonna
Well,
wish you did
apparently
if
that
you
was a
don't.
big deal. Like when I talked to Bella later,
Hmm.
she was just like, "Wait, they're like Lululemon never has anything on sale."
Hmm.
And she said, and when they do, it's never in your size. I'm like, they had my size. It was on sale and they had my size.
Yeah.
Like it was. So apparently,
Yeah.
I
And
just
if
really
we were at
lucked
my
out.
aunt's cabin, she would be like, but of course they had your dad's size. They had
Yeah,
your dad's size. Like that's just falls right into the little
yeah.
everything's perfect with
Little
Bob bucket.
background.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna run out and I'm not wearing the 501 today, so it should be pretty quick. Use the bathroom real
Okay.
quick.
All right, great.
Maybe you can catch Simone up to speed while I'm gone. I'll be right back.
Oh, Simone. Simone, you were like 90% of the follow-up. That's extreme. That's an exaggeration, but we definitely talked about you a lot at the beginning. Meanwhile, Valerie was going out trying to find you. She was like being a private investigator on Patreon, trying to locate you and bring you into the fold. Poshmark. Oh, Poshmark. Poshmark? You know what I mean? I didn't know about Poshmark for a really, really long time, or maybe I had heard ads for it on podcasts, but I had never gone. And then something happened where, like, I tore a hole in my favorite shirt or something, and I was like, "This shirt is so old. Like, I know where it came from, but I'll never find it again." And someone said you should go on Poshmark, and then I did go down a terrible rabbit hole of like, "Oh, this is yeah." But I feel like the fees for Poshmark are like more expensive. It's one of those things where you're like, oh, what a great price that the seller is offering this for. But then, like, once you click all the way through, it's like, and somehow this is $75 more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be $30. I feel like there's a little bit of that. But oh, Valerie's been selling over there for 10 years. Valerie,
Poshmark?
I welcome your thoughts. Yeah, about Poshmark fees, because that was the only thing that took me aback. Was like, "Oh, there's extra stuff," which, I mean, I guess there would be, but
I
I
feel
found
like
some
we had
stuff from there.
Poshmark as a sponsor like years ago.
I'm sure that's true. They definitely came up through podcast advertising.
Yeah, and
I think
that's like
that's right.
used clothes, right? You're buying used clothes from people.
Mhm, yeah. Yeah, Valerie agrees. It's yeah, even in the last, like, 2 years, I was like, "This is cool," and then all of a sudden, I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 what are we doing here?" So I have not been doing it. Um,
You know where else I've been buying clothes? The TikTok shop. They got me on the TikTok shop, and
oh,
it's real.
yeah,
I thought it was like like scam stuff,
yeah.
and I think some of it is. But like I'd be like scrolling through TikTok, and this guy's like, "Hey, are you built like me?" And I'm like, I'm built just like you." And he's
Uh-huh.
like,
They gotcha.
"Yeah, look at these shirts, and they're insane. They're like these polo shirts or these button up stretchy dress shirts are 3 for $20."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Well,
That
that's
doesn't
gotta."
concern you? Whenever I see that, I'm like, "What tiny hands."
Yeah,
made this
it does. Oh,
in
well,
a
no, I didn't think about
different
that.
country.
I just thought it would be, shitty material.
Well, I thought about human rights,
Yeah.
so F you.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't think about that. But yeah, I ordered them and it was like they were great. They were great.
Great. Well, thanks to those tiny 5-year-olds in Thailand that
Sure.
are working their asses off.
Listen, I'm pretty sure these were made in a factory in northern Indiana.
I'm sure you're right.
A couple of fellows with great big hands
I'm sure you're right.
running
I'm
that
sure you're
sewing
right.
machine. That's what I like to
Great.
think.
Great.
All right,
All
are
right,
we
should we
ready
get
to
going? Yeah,
yeah, are
we
we
probably
ready to
should.
end this pregame and
We can end the
start the big
pregame.
show? All right, pre-gamers, we're happy to provide such a great show for you, and
Oh
you
my
really,
god.
you don't have to thank us. You're welcome.
3,
And
10, 20, 30 unsubscribers from Patreon. It's so weird that I'm able to just sense that and feel it psychically.
I don't like that. You're an idiot. Okay.
Hurt Bob saying you're an idiot as a quiet sad. Oh my goodness.
Here we go. And you ready to hit record?
I sure am. And in fact, I
Uh,
have. In
I
fact,
have,
my friend, I have.
I have as well, and we'll go
Okay.
ahead and 1, 2, 3. Wait, I just
Uh-huh.
wanna just need to share this one comment by
Okay.
it is
Thank you, Susan.
there's some
Thank
irony
you.
there. There is some irony there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Appropriate. That's an appropriate comment. Okay. Ahoy, friends. You are listening to the Friday follow up for season 17, episode 7, in which Bob had a conversation with Tasha. Elizabeth Daly Ayers, one of the victims in this case's daughter. And they had a very, very helpful, very compassionate conversation. We had a lot of comments and questions from our listeners. We are unfortunately sans Zach today, but we do have a lot to get to. So before we dive into all of that, do we have any housekeeping?
The only real housekeeping I have is that I do have West Memphis 3 news. I just got it last night.
Okay.
Uh, the evidence is at the lab.
Oh, I made it to the lab.
It made it to the lab.
Great.
It was
Oh,
so,
now I wish Zach were here for extra because that's what he's gonna
yeah.
be so happy. Let's make sure we tell him.
Oh, so I actually talked to Damien on the phone last night, and it just like he sounds so good. He's so because he's had the rug yanked out from under him so many
Of
times.
course.
And the 10 days went by, and when we talked last time, and it hadn't been sent, and nobody really knew what was going on. And I think he was just feeling like it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. Apparently, all it was. Remember, I had told you guys at the hearing there was discussion about how the evidence would be packaged. Apparently, all it was the prosecutor had to file orders and supplements and saying, okay, we're using this courier and we're doing it this way, and it just delayed things a little bit.
Mm.
But it got shipped out, and we got word yesterday afternoon that the evidence has hit the lab and testing is commencing. So
Oh my goodness.
it was so good to hear Damien's voice yesterday, just sounding just excited. Like it was like the first time I've talked to him in a long time through this process where he hasn't been just like that hesitant, like they're gonna screw me over, they're gonna screw me over, they're gonna screw me
Yeah.
over. And I also just had one of those moments too, like as I was talking to him, I still think of all the people because we're hopefully going to get a real answer to this case
God, I
real
hope
soon.
so.
It's like this is it. I think this is really going to be it.
Wow.
And I think of all the people that are out there that are still like insisting and just hating and saying horrible things and insisting that Damien, Jason, and Jesse are guilty despite all the evidence to the contrary. And I just had this moment where I was like, I want is there really is there really nothing inside of them that thinks that Damien in particular has been fighting this hard for this many years to get this evidence sent to a place where they'll do the most thorough possible job to draw out any singular cell of DNA from this evidence to prove who did it. Is there any part of your brain that thinks, huh, that's weird for a guilty guy to do, who's already free and doesn't need to do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I wish I could say, yes, that part exists, and maybe it does with some people, but I think this case in particular, not that there aren't many, many more like it, But for me personally, and I bet I speak for a lot of our listeners, for me personally, the West Memphis case was the most jarring exposure to that cognitive dissonance in true
Yeah.
crime than I think I'd ever seen, and remains like a landmark example of that, of like, "Oh, I see. This has to be about something else because it can't be about the facts."
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't make any sense.
it's really I'm sure they'll study this for that reason, along with all of the others, for decades to come.
Yeah, and even with result like legitimate results that are able to hopefully, put the right person in prison, I guarantee some of these people will still continue that cognitive dissonance and will
Oh,
still
I think almost
continue.
all of them will.
Yeah, probably all of them. It's just I don't know, like I said, it doesn't matter anymore. It just occurred to me. I don't know why that just popped in my head. I'm like, how can you really really think, yeah, this guy did it? And because those same people when he started we started pushing for this, in 2020, we're just like, it's just a publicity stunt. He doesn't really want to test it. And it's like, oh, he filed a appeal all the way up to the Arkansas Supreme Court to get it done. Like, oh, what's going on here? And then the thing that when we got denied in 2022, and then like finally going back up to the Arkansas Supreme Court again to push it, and then like just hoop after hoop after hoop and pushing, and it finally gets to the lab, and they're like, yeah, it's totally that's a guilty. Like, what's the and it doesn't
I
matter.
know,
I don't even
I
want to
know,
get into it, but it was just one of
I
those
know.
moments I had where it's like, what's wrong? And as I've said with most cases, in most cases, and I accept this even with the West Memphis 3 case, I can fully accept somebody being like, man, I still think they're guilty. Like I can acknowledge that, there's a chance, but I still think they're guilty. Like that, I can get that. But like the people that are like, absolutely, like, and no matter what new evidence comes out, like that doesn't matter. It's still like yeah, like you said,
It's
it's
about
about
something
something
else.
else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about something else. Well, I do we have any sense? I'm sure people that's everyone's next question is just, do we have any sense of how long, it will take to have public results revealed?
No, we don't. I was actually asking Damien about that last night because, at one point it was going to go to Pure Gold in forensics, and they were like, we're going to run like the minute it hits our desk, we're going for it, and we're going to have results back in a couple of weeks. It ended up going to Bodie, and that was because you got a lot of players now, right? So you got the
Right,
prosecutor, you've got Jason's team and Jesse's team and Damien's team. So they ended up going to everybody agreed on Bodie.
right.
And so he was saying that like for the MBAC, like it all has to go to Bodie, but like Bodie's able to subcontract someone else to do the MBAC because apparently it sounded like from what Damien was telling me they had found like this a really good expert that they were really excited about using to do the MBAC extraction, and that person they're not part of Bodie, and so they're hoping that Bodie can then still contract. I think it's a woman, her, to come and do the extraction piece. So there may be a little bit of it may take a little bit of time to get all of the pieces put together.
Mm,
But then whatever gets extracted, the analysis of that DNA will be at Bodie Labs. Everything's going to happen at Bodie Labs, but they can bring
m'kay.
other people in. So yeah, we don't have any like hard and fast like timeline. I would imagine that Bodie knows like all eyes across the world are watching right now, and we'll do it as quickly as possible. But all we really care about is that they do it as thoroughly and correctly as possible.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, this would be the wrong time to push something through speedily when so much time has passed. You just wanna get it right.
Yeah.
You wanna get it right.
Veronica in the YouTube chat said that she Googled yesterday and it said that the results would be in 2026. So that tracks, because we're coming into September.
Yeah.
So, that would be, in 4 months, it'll be 2026. So it wouldn't surprise me if it takes, but I would expect either towards the end of the year or like Q1 2026 next year that we'll
Okay.
have the results is what I'm hoping for.
Which is more around the corner than I would care to believe considering how fast this year has gone, but
Right.
that's I guess the good part is it will feels like a long time now, but I bet it won't feel that long once it actually happens.
Right.
Let's all hope. Well, thanks for that update. That's very exciting.
Hmm. Yeah, and so getting back into this episode, first of all, I personally, and I did to her personally, but just publicly, would just want to really thank Tasha for
Oh,
coming
yeah.
on and doing the interview. That was that was hard. You know, I'd mentioned that I've been talking to her for a couple of weeks, and I'm sure there was a lot of nervousness there about, she said from the very beginning when we first talked that, she wanted to come on the podcast because she wanted to give her mother a voice and she wanted people to hear from her perspective. But man, that's a lot to ask of someone
Yeah.
to do. And I was just so impressed, and she did so well. And she just did great. And it just added a layer to this story that I don't think we could have gotten any other way other than having Tasha come on and tell her mom's story.
I agree, and that was a very consistent thread that ran through all of the Facebook posts, when people would chime in with questions and stuff. Just an overwhelming amount of people who really wanted to make sure to take that moment to say thank you to Tasha for being vulnerable in that way and for sharing that part of her life and her mom and her memory with us, and to entrust us with that, because it is hard when nobody's perfect, and it's
Right.
very hard to want to help as much as you can, knowing also that you're acknowledging something that is a tough part of your life and your history, if not the
Mhm.
toughest, which I'm sure it is, for all of those reasons. And also people who thought you did a lovely job of navigating that. So credit where credit is due. You handled it very, very gently and thoughtfully. And those are really important things to our listeners, which is one of the reasons that we love them so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw a lot of those comments, and just, we have such a kind and open-minded audience, and that was one of the things that I told Tasha, coming in. It was like, this group of people, I know it's like thousands of people all over the world, but like they're here with us because they have the same type of mindset, towards these type of things. And another big thing is, as far as, moving the case forward and getting information that's going to help us with the case, one thing that tends to be a struggle a lot of times when we're trying to actually study victimology is everybody wants to, you know, to to look through rose-colored glasses, right? And just paint like a better picture, you know, than maybe reality sometimes. So that was not easy either for Tasha. She could have come on and just
Sure.
been like, she was wonderful, she was the best, there was
Well, of
never any
course.
problems. And I'm sure there's like an instinct to do that, but that doesn't help us, because one thing in our private conversations that we had off the air, there was a lot of discussion about the fact that the police never cared enough to ask these questions.
Yeah.
And she wants, she recognizes that the best way to be able to solve this case is going to be able to have all of the facts that the police never bothered to look for. So, just again, just hats off to Tasha for, like you said, making herself so vulnerable and giving us as thorough and honest as a picture of her mother as she could.
And also, and Tasha, if you're listening to this, I'll say this directly to you. Um, this kind of thing has sometimes a result that you don't expect, which is the way that these things sort of blossom out into other discussions. And so much of what we also saw on the follow up, not just in the Facebook, but I think in just general posts, is people feeling very seen, very heard, and very understood about struggles that they have had in their own lives and that they have had. I'm getting emotional, that their family members have had, because so many of us have been touched by addiction. And we had so many people saying, thank you, Tasha, for, being brave enough to help us, and Bob for giving a platform for that continued conversation about addiction being a disease, not being about, oh, your mom just didn't care enough about you, so she just wasn't there for you. It is so much more complicated than that. And an addiction is so real. And especially for those of us who have watched a family member keep getting back up and trying over and over again, it is heartbreaking. And I just wouldn't wish that on anyone. And so the fact that people feel, Tasha, that not only do we not want to find not only do we want to find the person responsible for this, but also you and your mom have had an impact on people that goes far beyond just this one case, because people feel like they've been seen and heard, and they feel like the more we can talk about this stuff, the more we can help the people who are suffering through it.
Yeah, I
Whew.
agree
Sorry
100%.
about that.
No, that's fine. That
Very
that's
emotional.
again, our audience, I think, is they appreciate the fact that
Yeah.
this really means that much to you. And yeah, and you've just touched a lot of people, Tasha, and With that being said, we better get into stuff. Before we get
For
into
sure.
the questions, were there any specific takeaways that you had or thoughts that you had about the episode, Janet? Before we get into the questions,
No, I mean, I thought it was really important for all the reasons that we just talked about. Certainly for understanding, Liz better as a human being, and hopefully ways in which that will contribute towards the investigation. Um, the thing there was a thing I knew that we were going to get questions across the board about all of the things that you guys touched on, and so I didn't make a bunch of notes for myself. The only thing that I thought that kind of jumped out at me at the time as I was listening to it, which I'm acknowledging right now, that it's just as likely that it would be something that would be that you'll hear what I mean in a moment. A comment that Tasha made that could very much be informed by present day facts and information,
hmm
but she did happen to say that when she was talking to the police, at some point they said, like, if you want us to catch these guys, like that was just like what she sort of threw out there as a comment, and I just peeked to that immediately because I
it's
thought,
thorough.
well, if they really said that, yeah, then
hmm
it's like they knew. But it's
Yeah,
possible that because of what she has come to understand about the case, or um maybe that's just something that she felt and knew, and she attributed that logic, the basic logic that you would imagine the
well,
cops would use, whether they used it or not. I just thought that just struck me.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure they did actually think that. That's one of the infuriating parts about this case, because remember, like, their initial, clues were from Larry saying that there was, like, 2 people there talking to them.
Right.
That was, like, in the initial statements, that there was two men had come and had conversation. So they were always looking for 2. The evidence they presented at trial was all about 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. It was always 2 people. But then they convicted, and again, it shows you how much did they actually care about these victims, because they
Yeah.
convicted 1,
Yeah.
and then case closed.
Yeah.
Never convicted a second person, never arrested a second person for it, never put anybody else on trial for it. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me at all if that is exactly what they said, because what the information they had was that there was 2 men in the house.
Yeah. But the idea that you would say that to the victims' families, kind of using their emotions to which, by the way, they weren't getting any, they weren't even coming to her for any information at the time. So it's
Right.
not like, but you sort of hear that and you think, gosh, that's such an easy thing to say to a victim's family when you're, trying to get a case solved, but you take that in as a family member, and you think that that really means that the police care about the case, and that they're going to never give up until they've found the people responsible, and then to just see it kind of go in a direction and then disappear,
Yeah.
be like, "But remember when you said you really wanted to solve this?"
Yeah, and
I don't
really what
know.
I wanted you to do was to
It's
shut up and get
painful.
out of my way.
Yeah, it's painful,
Mhm.
and I know there's gonna be so much more to dig in about that, because obviously we haven't heard the confession, and there's just so much about the way this case was built out and how it all came down that we don't know yet. But and obviously every episode that you release pushes us forward into wanting more of those answers
Yeah,
as we go. So there will undoubtedly be some things that come up today as well, that you just have to tell us that we have to hold on,
sure.
and that there will be more coming, and that you don't know the answer to yet as
Yeah,
you move through this investigation. Um, but so for the first question, just kind of looking for a hard fact here, if you have it. Ari says, "I know you said the ages in the autopsy episodes, but can you remind us how old Amp and Liz were when they were killed?"
Oh, I wish I had seen that question. They were, I wanna say 37. I believe they were, did you say Amp and Angela?
Amp and Liz, in the case of Ari's
Oh,
question.
gotcha. Yeah, I believe don't I'll figure this out and make sure I let you know later
Okay.
next week, but because I believe they were both 37, but, one of the victims was 34. Um, so either 34 or 37. They were in their mid-30s.
Okay. Amy says if her daughter, she said a few other things, including being very kind about Tasha. But Amy said, was just curious, wasn't sure if she had missed this somewhere else. If Tasha didn't identify Liz, then who did? How do they know who she
Uh,
was?
um, yeah, so it was another family member and a friend. There was 2 people that went. One was, she mentioned Donna. Um, and I believe that the way that worked was they interviewed Michelle, because remember, Michelle is the one that had reported her missing. They interviewed Michelle. Michelle had given them details about Liz and Sheila. How do I, she mentioned
Right.
the tattoos, the fact that Liz was missing a tooth. And then I think that Michelle, that we're going to get into Michelle's statement later, her actual police statement. But I think that Michelle had like told them, who some of her friends or family were, who they got a hold of, and then they had them go down and positively identify the bodies, or her body. They had, that's as well as Sheila, same type of thing.
Got it. Uh, Laura says, did you ask Tasha what her mother was wearing when she last saw her? I'm wondering whether it was what Liz was wearing when she was found.
No, I didn't, but I am going to I saw that question. I'm going to reach out to Tasha and see if she remembers. Um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a long shot, but if it's something that's really burned into her mind, she may know.
Yeah. Some questions around the car. I figured this would happen during that conversation because there were things that I think we haven't gotten to yet that were referred to in your conversation with Tasha, including questions about whose car it was. Kaylee says Liz's daughter was talking about the car her mom would borrow from Tom. Did we know that she drove somewhere that night using his car? For some reason, I had pictured her walking to Michelle's house/apartment, but maybe she drove there. It felt like new information to me, but I could have just been filling gaps in my own head.
No, she drove. So the car that was found at the ball field was, because that was a question that had come up a while ago. People were like, because in the photos, there's like the registration who it belongs to and says it belongs
Yeah.
to someone named Tom.
Yeah.
But that was the car Liz was driving. It was Liz's neighbor or somebody that lived near her, where she lived over in Portage or whatever, 10 minutes away. Yeah. And she drove from her house to Michelle's house and then left in her car. I think some of the confusion came in because of the keys,
Hmm.
because Michelle said that she left with her keys. Those weren't car keys. She had given Liz and Sheila her house keys, so that when they came home, they could get back into the house while she was sleeping. And then
Got it.
she was upset the next day because on that same key ring were Michelle's car keys. So Michelle was stranded because she didn't have her car keys, but they didn't take Michelle's car. Liz was driving Tom's car.
Okay. That's very helpful, actually. I'm realizing now that I forgot. I didn't think that they were driving her car. Do you need to pause for a second? I'm so sorry. You're looking so intently off to the side.
I'm reading the
Sorry,
autopsies
Erica.
to get the ages.
Okay. Okay. It kept seeming like something was happening that was drawing your attention, and I
Yeah,
was like,
sorry.
"What is going on?"
So
Sorry,
hang on.
everybody.
Yeah, so I guess we should pause for a minute. Let
Yeah,
me,
Erica, you're the best.
Erica, when you edit this, just where she said, "Do we need to pause for a minute?" and then you cut to me saying, "Yeah," and I'll explain this 1 second here. Okay. So after Janet says, "Do we need to pause for a minute?"
Well, I don't know because I feel like what I was just like running my mouth and I wasn't paying attention to what I was saying because
It's
I was
fine.
like, "What is he doing over there?" Erica will know what to do.
Yeah,
Erica,
yeah,
you'll figure it out.
yeah. So it says that will come back into this. Yeah, sorry, I was distracted. I was trying to answer the question. People were asking how old were Liz and Amp at the time of the murder, so I was pulling up on my other monitor the autopsy reports, and I do have that answer. So Amp was 35 years old, and Liz was 37 years old at the time of the
Okay.
murders.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Um,
derail you.
No, it's fine. That clarification about the keys, because it would make sense that someone would think that she was driving Michelle's car since Michelle's car key was on the key ring that they
Right.
only had because they were gonna be able to get back into the house. So that's
Yeah.
helpful. And then Emmett had a question about the club, which made several of us on the follow-up thread realize like, oh, you may take we took for granted that people would necessarily know what the club is. Um, because it could mean any number of things. It could mean a bully club, like it could mean something that you would imagine like a
Yeah.
baseball bat that you would use for defense. It could mean any number of things. In this case, I'm assuming that you were talking about the club, which was like an as seen on TV kind of device that I'm sure people still use, but it's sort of meant to keep you from being able to like steal a car. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, it's a security device, and the way it works, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, maybe people are younger than me and Janet and didn't see all those as seen on TV commercials. But yeah, it's like a steel rod, maybe 3/4 of an inch diameter, pretty heavy rod, and it's like telescoping. And inside the rod, there's two hooks that both face outward, and the way it would work, and then it's like coated in like rubber. And the way it would work is you would put it over your steering wheel and extend the rod out so that those hooks capture like both sides of the steering wheel, so it's stuck on the steering wheel, and the rod would then extend up to like where it's like touching the windshield. And the effect that it had was you couldn't turn this if you were to steal a car or hot wire or whatever, you couldn't turn the steering wheel because this rod is jammed into the steering wheel into the windshield, so you can't turn the steering wheel to drive it away. And that's what she was talking about. And she said that Tom would often put the club on his car so that Liz wouldn't take his car.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's what the club was, and it's very effective, by the way. I mean, my memory of it is like, well, that's if you're worried about your car being taken without your permission, it's a pretty big item. What came up for me on that, and I can't remember if you guys touched on this during the episode with the interview itself, but is that something that could have been used as a weapon?
Absolutely. And that
Yeah.
was when she mentioned it as first thing, because remember, I think I'd even mentioned the club as a possibility
No,
back
maybe you
then.
did. Maybe you did. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was from the kind of leakage for me, if I had heard somebody mention something about it at some point,
Mm,
as maybe why it got into my head. But I believe based on that injury and the skull fractured and the way the skin tore,
mhm.
my theory has been that it was some kind of a long tubular object. So I thought like a pipe, the club, something like that. This would definitely fit that bill. It's something that you could swing hard enough that would hit and cause the skull
Mm,
fracture, but also tear the skin.
yeah.
So that's definitely a possibility. And the club was not found in the car or at the crime scene. So we don't know for sure if it was in there when she took it. But according to Tasha, it was the Tom always kept it in that car. Like when she would
Yeah.
see her mom driving that car, the club was in the car. So
Yeah,
um,
that's really her testimony on that, if you wanna call it that, is pretty compelling. Uh, I don't everyone I've ever known who had a club never took it out of the car. There
yeah,
was no reason to. There was no
right.
reason to. You would always have it in the car. So that's very, very interesting. Um, okay, Rebecca says, Tasha mentions that she heard about the murder from Sharon and Naomi, friends of Liz's and hers. It sounds like they knew about the murder pretty quickly, during a window when police would have been IDing the body so early. While it's possible Sharon and Naomi heard about the murders from the media, I'm wondering how much initial coverage these murders would have received, since Gary had a serious crime problem and maybe it was treated as just more of the same, in quotes. Or, per Tasha's remarks, the detective thought of her mom as one of those types of people, also in quotes. So where did Sharon and Naomi learn about the murder? Could they have been part of the street network, the so-called street network that may have known something about who could really have done it? And are those people around and willing to speak with you?
That they're added to my list of people that I want to speak to. I don't know how they found out, but it wouldn't have been from the media, because it's time when they're just identifying the body. So even if there was like massive media coverage of what had happened, it wouldn't have been that Elizabeth Daly Ayers was murdered. It would have been just there's two bodies found at the ballpark. So there's no way they would have known that it was her. So my assumption, a lot of it to me probably comes back to Michelle, because remember Michelle said that she spent some time before she called the police calling around to all Liz's friends trying to see if anybody had seen her and or knew where she was at.
Okay.
So my assumption is that she was probably the source of the information.
Interesting. And questions about Tom, including from Jennifer. Do you know if he would be someone that you could speak with,
I believe
or if
Tom is
police spoke with
deceased.
him? Okay.
And then in our YouTube chat, Donna said, "And the police never talked to Tom about it." Like, and from what I've seen so far in the case file, because that's how a lot of this, when I'm investigating, writing episodes and stuff like this, that's a lot. I go down these rabbit trails and I
Sure.
start, keyword searching all these documents trying to find, and I haven't seen anywhere where Don was ever questioned, which is
Tom.
nuts. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah.
Or
Uh,
I said Tom, I
yeah.
meant. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. Becky, and I'm going to read Becky's, but this, a lot of very similar related questions came in from people like Patricia and Rossi. Said, is there any evidence that AMP might have dealt, whether it be crack or something else? Could it be possible, Becky asks, the people Liz and Sheila met at the ball field came to AMP's house earlier in the evening to obtain crack to sell to Liz, then returned after the murders because they told Amp, Angela, and Suzanne who they were meeting and selling to.
So I don't know. I did find this week when I was researching something else, some indication that Amp did sell drugs.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's I don't know if we'll be able to verify that or not. I'm hoping so. I've actually been in contact with Amp's son over the last couple of weeks. We've texted a few times. We've been planning to get on a phone call. It hasn't worked out as of right now. We have scheduled to get on the phone and actually talk on Friday. So that won't be an interview. I'm just going to talk to him on Friday.
Sure.
I'm hoping that he will be open to coming on and doing an interview and talking about his dad and just like Tasha did. Um, as far as that scenario, I don't know. There's a lot of scenarios I've run through my mind, but the big thing that I keep coming back to is there were no drugs found at the scene.
Mm.
It's possible that that the killer took everything, but and it's the hard part is like the best witness account we have from what happened is from 12-year-old Larry. But then we know, and this is not me assuming, this is from his own words. What he has said later is that a lot of what he said is not true. And it sounds like he was pressured by police to insert things into that narrative. So I don't know where we draw the line of what's true and what's not true.
Mm.
If we believe his kind of initial account of what happened, which was that, that two guys came in, they had some words, the shots were fired, they shut the lights off and left. Like that doesn't, unless like whatever drugs Amp had that he was selling were just all laying right there. You'd think they'd be somewhere where they'd have to like look for them and find them. Um, it's hard to imagine that it happened that quickly. It's also hard to imagine. So based on what we learned in the talk screens, all three of the victims in the house used crack cocaine right before they were killed. So they were users of them. It would also seem odd that if they're, because there's the idea of like, well, maybe if he was a dealer but he didn't actually smoke it, that's why they didn't have it in their system from any time before then. But they did use it right
Hmm.
before they were killed.
Hmm.
So it would seem odd. It seems to me more like it's the other way around, that they were that Amp and Angela and Suzanne were getting the cocaine from the people that came in and killed them, not the other way around. Because just based on the fact that there was none found anywhere in the house
Hmm.
and there was no metabolites in their system indicating that they had used, within a day or two before that either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have some other questions about kind of behaviors leading up to and after the murder in the house. Um, I'm just gonna ask this question in case anyone else has it. I'm not saying that I think this is the case. Um, is there a scenario where you could see like little Larry just like trying to look out for his people and trying to protect them and maybe gathering up something that he knows? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't, I'm not saying I think that would happen. I think that's way too advanced and an incredibly traumatic, horrible situation.
Yeah,
I
I don't.
cannot, I cannot imagine that happening. I'm just going to ask it to like put it out there in case anyone else,
Sure.
it crossed
Yeah.
anyone's mind.
No, I don't think so for a couple of reasons. One, like you said, is very. I mean, he just walked into his mother.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's
Everybody loved.
realistic.
But on top of that, I will share. I guess I'll share this a little bit with you. Part of what I've been researching, getting ready for, is to go through all of Larry's statements. And Larry, in his police statement, said that Amp dealt drugs.
Hmm.
Right. So it doesn't that's when I said like I found one piece of
Yeah.
evidence that indicates
That's
that
what
maybe
that
he
is.
did. That's what it
Okay.
was. It was
Okay.
Larry saying that he did. So yeah, it doesn't really compute to me that he would both just go tell the police, yeah, he does drugs after like hiding them so they wouldn't know.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you for that. Meanwhile, Kelsey says, "What can Tasha tell us anything else about just kind of Amp's general demeanor and personality since they were friends?"
Um, she hasn't, but I can ask her that. But I'm hoping to get some of that too from Amp's son.
Yeah,
But yeah,
definitely.
we're gonna and I have some contact information for some family members of the other victims, some of the other victims too. So my hope is if any of them are willing, you'll hear more interviews like this if any of those people are willing, if Amp's son is willing to come on and record an interview and talk about his dad, then as far as I'm concerned, number one, I believe victimology is the most important part of any investigation, and it's also really important to me that these 5 victims don't get lost in this investigation and in this story. So it will stop all whatever I have planned that week. If Am says, yeah, I'm willing to get on and do an interview, then that's what you're going to hear that week, and we'll just we'll move the episodes back. So hopefully we'll get more of that information soon.
Okay. Uh, so Joan is, again, as people are continuing to really try to connect those dots and see if there is that connection between the crimes, which I'm sure for people seems now more likely, knowing that
Mm-hmm.
one victim in the house and one victim in the ball field certainly knew each other. Joan says, I'm wondering if perhaps Liz and Sheila showed up at the house during the murders and were killed to silence them after witnessing either the murders or the aftermath.
I don't think so, because there's a timing issue there, right? So we have the only timing we have for the murders at the ball field were the one witness. We'll get more into her testimony later, but I touched on it in episode 1, that it was around like 1:20 in the morning when she was actually outside on her front porch and heard the gunshots at the ball field. Um, that night, and then it's somewhere around 2:05, 2:20, somewhere after 2 a.m. is when the murders happened. We know when they happened at the house because Larry went out and called 911 right afterwards. So it seems like the murders at the ball field happened 30 minutes to an hour before the murders at the house.
Okay. Sarah says, I'm not a drug user, but am skeptical that Liz would take someone she didn't know, Sheila, to meet a drug dealer. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's not a world that I'm very familiar with. Um, I also don't know. I don't know much about Sheila yet at this point. Um, so like I don't know her personality because I haven't been able to connect with anybody that was close to Sheila at the time. Was she somebody who liked to party and was like, yeah, let's go get some stuff and go have a good time. I'm down for whatever. Or I don't, the fact that she ate, I think, after they left too. Like all these things are still, so I don't have the answer for you yet. Um, and I don't know if I'll be able to get the answer for you, but that's definitely something I thought of, because if you remember, according to Michelle, it wasn't like she said, hey, me and Sheila are going out. She said, I'm going to the liquor store. I want you to come with. And Michelle said, no, I'm already in bed. I'm done for the night. And then Sheila said, well, I'll go with you. So yeah, I don't know. Skeptical is not the right word for me. It's just kind of confusing for me still at this point, how all that shook out.
Yeah, it's very confusing because you can imagine any number of reasons and motivations for all kinds of stuff, all kinds of scenarios that kind of could be a piece of what you just described and what Michelle said. I mean, if you're meeting a dealer that you would rather not see alone, that's a different conversation than,
Right.
hey, do you want to get in on this? Or, hey, do you want to, we can, while we're out, you're hungry, we can grab you a bite to eat. I'll be real quick. Like it's like feels like infinite possibilities as to the motivations and reasoning and circumstances behind those two ladies leaving together.
Yeah.
That so far it doesn't seem like anyone bothered to get to the bottom of. So hopefully maybe we'll be able to elucidate some of that. Jessica says, maybe a strange question, but since Tasha said that Liz would already have had the cash for the drugs when going to the liquor store, do we know what kind of liquor store it was? I know there used to be those beverage stores that also sold alcohol that you could drive through and not get out of your car. Drive-throughs are notorious for being places drugs are sold out of. Was anyone spoken to at the liquor store?
Of course not. At least not that we see in the case file not that I've seen so far. And as far as I know, no, nobody was ever. That was one of the biggest frustrations, as I said. Like they never seemed to even bother to figure out what her movements were. But I'm sure you guys all heard in real time in that interview how much that hit me as I was trying to. I've been thinking through a timeline and trying to make sense of all of this, and it was like that gap between all the way when we go to the ball field, right? So Liz is fully dressed. It looks to me as though someone was trying to pull her shirt off or try to grab her by the shirt, and she was, pulling away from it or whatever. It certainly, that scene doesn't look to me like she went to go do sex work or trade sex work for drugs there. That does not seem to be the scenario. I'm still confused by, Sheila then is fully nude. So that's a whole nother story. But none of that really made sense to me. Also, when eventually we're going to be getting into like the DNA in the case, all of the DNA evidence that came out after the conviction. Um, it just a lot of not alarm bells, but a lot of lights started going off for me. Like, okay, now I can maybe see how this makes some sense. If she
Oh.
left, say, 6 o'clock, her house, and then there's a 4 hour gap there before she shows up at Sheila. According to Tasha, her MO would be to go do sex work to earn money
Mhm.
and then go use that money to go get drugs. For some reason, I had in my mind that once so Tasha had told me in my first conversation, because the information I had gotten was that there's no evidence that she's ever done any sex work. That was an excuse the prosecution used in an appeal later. And then Tasha was like, no, she did. She did do that. And so in my mind, it was like, okay, so maybe that's what was going on. She was trading sex work for drugs. And then when she told me that, no, that's not how it would work. She would trade sex work for money and then the money for the drugs. And I understand because some people had commented, they're like, that's very common to trade. I had people even email me that had suffered from addiction themselves. And like, it's not an uncommon thing to trade sex for drugs.
Right.
But I understand it's not an uncommon thing, but it sounds like that's not the way Liz operated. So I
Right.
think all that's gonna this all makes sense. I think later when we get into the DNA.
Okay. Uh, Going back to the house crime scene for just a moment, Sarah says, "Do we know if the children in the house were tested for any drugs, just in terms of whether it could help indicate whether they were habitual users around the kids?"
I don't think so. No.
Janiyah says, again, going back, this is the comment that I mentioned earlier about going back to that sort of behavior around the consumption of drugs and then the subsequent murder. Janiyah says, why would a dealer supply, assumedly paying customers drugs, then shoot them all afterwards? Surely this isn't good business. Any dealer would get their money first before handing over the crack. So what motive is there? It also feels too messy if easily tied back to someone who supplied them drugs. I wonder if we are more likely thinking it could be an acquaintance who used the crack as just a way in the door, like a decoy.
I think that's possible. That it wasn't necessarily a dealer that, especially because again, if we're believing Larry, like it sounds like people came by the house, they had a conversation, they left, they came back, and then we know they did drugs, and then they were killed immediately afterwards. Um, doesn't sound like a dealer to me. It sounds more like an acquaintance
Mhm.
that came back, and maybe the drugs were just a distraction to get everybody a little bit distracted before they murdered them. Um, but as far as the motivation, that's a good question, and that goes back to as we're starting to kind of break down things at the ball field, why it was so significant to me to realize, oh, the attack started somewhere else, and then the bodies were moved in an attempt to conceal it. That's when we started thinking through, or I started thinking through, okay, why would they conceal these? But they know they're going to be found
Mhm.
soon. Why are they concealing them? And then I started wondering about the connection to the crime scene, and that's it. I think I said at the end of that episode, the only thing that makes sense to me, if the scenes are connected, is the motive would be that the people at the house had seen them with Liz that night. So they're like, if Liz's, if Liz and Sheila's bodies are found, these three people at this house are going to tell police like they were with those two guys right there. That's who they left my house with an hour before this
Mm.
happened. So I think that would be it's a theory, but I think that would be a motive that would make sense to me. Would be that they are witnesses that could catch them for killing the other two.
Which, I mean, for those of us who are kind of coming from a place where we have never done anything like this, it seems crazy to to increase your risk of getting caught by taking more lives to conceal the fact
Yeah.
that you've taken lives. That's a massive risk, but that's not necessarily the mindset that you're in
Well,
when
there's
this is all
also
going down,
I
too.
think if we just look at it like logically, and I know that people in these situations aren't always thinking logically, but we kind of like tend to think instinctually. There's always going to be like this, like a cost benefit or a risk benefit analysis that's happening, whether it's really like carefully thought out, or it's just something that's just automatically happening in your brain. So are they adding more risk by killing 3 more people? Yes. But at the same time, are they also removing some risk by killing those 3 people? And
Right.
so if the thought in their mind, and I know I'm talking about this kind of very academically, but just a basic thought in your mind is, we are 100% going to be caught because these 3 people know that we were with them.
Right.
And if it's like, but if we go kill those 3 people, now there's a 25% chance we get caught for all 5, but there's a 75% chance we don't get caught for any of them, right? So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
that kind of balance. And like I said, I'm not suggesting that they were doing a statistical analysis of this, but just that kind of basic thought process. Like,
Right.
I know I'm caught if they're alive. If I
Right.
kill them, I might get caught for all 5, but there's also a chance that I won't get caught at all because they're the only reason anyone would know I was with them.
Yeah. Oh, that's brutal, especially
Mhm.
knowing that those kids are there. That really is, in
Right,
terms of behavior, just extra heartless, it would seem,
right.
if you want to look at it that way. Okay, we're almost done. Jennifer and some others asked a similar question. I may have missed it, she says, but did Bob ask Tasha if she or Liz knew Chris Bynum or any Chris that her mom might have mentioned to Michelle?
Yeah, Liz didn't know Chris. Chris didn't know Chris Bynum at all.
Uh, Ari
Or
also
excuse me,
asked,
I'm
oh,
sorry.
yeah,
Tasha didn't
Tasha didn't
know.
know Chris.
Yeah, didn't know Chris at all. And so because I'd asked her, "Do you know?" And she's like, "I don't." Basically, was like, "I don't think so. I've never heard. I don't know this guy."
Okay, so I guess it's still possible that Liz could have,
It's
but would
possible,
not.
yes.
Got it. And Ari said, "This may be jumping ahead," and Ari, you know, you're right. You were jumping ahead. But Ari asks, "What do we know if Chris Bynum was a dealer or a user?"
Not to my knowledge, definitely not a dealer. I don't know if he was a user. I've purposely not dug into Chris too much because I don't want to bias what I'm looking. I'm trying to look at the case from ground zero, from the very
Yeah.
beginning, and see where the evidence has taken us. So I don't want to make the mistake they made as turning this into a suspect driven investigation. So yeah, I don't know the answer to that yet. We'll be digging into, because if that's the case, should have come out of trial, should have come out in the investigation. But I
Mm,
don't think so. I don't think that he was a user or a dealer, because that's certainly not like in like the big flashing headlines of anything you research or
right.
Google or anything. Look at this case. There's not like drug dealer kills. There was none of that.
Yeah. Wow. Which makes all of these questions people have about the connection that Chris has at all even more like mysterious and something that people are very eager to learn more about. Tony says, kind of going back to last week's podcast, and apologies if this has been asked before, but could there have been one perpetrator who brought 2 guns to the house in the first incident? If they were flying solo and didn't want to waste time reloading, wouldn't this be an option?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. We basically, what we were able to determine in the house crime scene is that 8 shots were fired. They were almost certainly fired out of a revolver, which means it was almost certainly either 2 guns or a reload. I don't think that there was a reload. That just doesn't make sense to me. Although, we do have Larry saying that he heard somebody saying to reload. So again, it's hard with, we don't know how much of Larry's story came from him and how much of it came from coercion, right? So it's possible there was a reload. It's possible it was one guy with 2 guns, and it's possible there was 2 different guys with 2 guns. I just have a hard time imagining what sequence of shots would happen to where
Mm,
they're gonna take the time to reload to reload a pistol. It's just hard for me to wrap my brain around. So, yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities about that are still out there.
okay. Are we going to talk more about all the ballistics and stuff?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. Are we done with questions?
Yeah, remember
Yeah,
how I teed that up because I knew what we were talking about next
yeah.
week? I really thought you were gonna roll right into it and say,
Yeah.
"And I'm glad you brought up the firearms because."
Right. Let me do that. Erica, go ahead and cut out what Janet said, and I just smartly rolled right into this. Um, and on the topic of the firearms and the connections that we were talking about, that's what we're moving into this Sunday. I think that we now have, once we add in the firearm examiner's analysis, what we've already learned, and there's another witness we're going to hear from this week, or hear about this week. I think that we should finally be able to answer, because the question that was just being asked was, is there a connection to Chris? I don't know, but the first thing that we need to do is figure out, is there a connection between these two crime scenes? Is this a quintuple homicide, or is it two separate, a triple and a double homicide? So that's the question we're going to answer this weekend. I think I'm pretty comfortable saying we come to a pretty definitive conclusion. I will also warn you, this, I think, is it will be the shortest episode that we've ever produced. So I started working on, all these different angles that I knew I was going to go through. I was able to get through them, and again, much shorter than normal. And one, I was able to answer the question. Two, it's a holiday weekend, and I'm gonna try to spend some time with the holidays, and we decided that that's what it's gonna be. So I need your time for about 17 minutes on Sunday,
Okay.
and we're gonna answer the connection question. And other than that, enjoy, if you're in the United States, your Labor Day weekend. And we'll talk to you guys all about it on Wednesday.
Thanks, everybody.
And we'll talk to you guys all about it next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys. Hopefully that's a clean edit. Sorry, Erica.
Erica, you're the best.
It just occurred to me, I'm going to stop on my record. It just occurred to me when I said on Wednesday that most people
that's not
listen to it on Friday.
correct. Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Even though you fine people get to actually talk to us about it.
That's right.
On Wednesday. Oh, yeah, you did a nice job teeing me up for that one. And well, here's the thing. I knew, because I was going to go into it when you said, is there a connection to Chris? Everybody wants to know there's a connection to Chris. I'm like, oh, I've got the perfect spin on that. I'm going to be like, oh, well,
gotcha.
Speaking of connections.
Yeah.
And then we went on to the end, like, wait, are we done? Are we done?
Yeah. Understood.
And then you started laughing at me when I started talking. And I realized that
I think I did that thing where I was trying to give you the apple shot or whatever it is right before the martini shot, which is we only have a couple more questions, I said at the second to last question.
Yeah.
Thinking somehow he's going to track that and realize yes, that means signs, this next one is the last question.
Yeah, all the signs were there. They were all there. Like, you did a fine job. That one's on me, and as I'm going to blame it on 100 kids all day for 3 days of just wore me down.
Yeah,
now that we're back to school.
Fair enough. I like to blame it on Zach being gone, just because I hate when he's gone. So I like to make him feel bad when he has to miss, so that
Zach
he won't do it anymore.
None of this would happen if Zach had been here.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're going to end this stream. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate it. All of your comments. Bye, I guess. I don't know. What did you say? Bye?